Chapter 2. In solitude, the human is beneficial to none. Much like the scene we were met with when we first got here, the scene in front of us appears controlled and planned out once more. Daniel's once again the center of attention for the personnel and inhabitants alike. People are louder today. Compared to yesterday's absolute reticence, today the feelings of my fellow inhabitants are far more embodied. The change in mood aside, the aura enveloping Daniel is much like one you'd expect from an experienced soldier. The people around him seem smaller than they really are, and I'm sure they feel smaller too. He looks down at his subtle wristwatch and signals with grand gestures for people to settle down. Good day. I hope you've all slept well, and have at least begun to settle into your new homes. The mass's volume gradually increases after hearing these words, but is quickly shushed down by the man in gray that is Daniel. I know you have a lot to get used to around here, and it will take time. That's a fact. I also know that you have a great deal of questions, but be patient with me, and let me first tell you what you need to know to make this the easiest it can be for you. No counter-reaction. His empathic and logically sound words seem to have a great effect on his audience. I suppose choosing a poor speaker for the job would be an illogical choice, so surely this is one of his strengths. Today's orientation day. This means you'll be shown partly around the premises by your house's caretaker. Seeing as you've been spread out across a wide array of different buildings, you'll be split into groups in accordance with which building you belong to. You will be taught and shown part of what you need to live a good life here, and I hope you can seize this opportunity to the fullest. Before you get started, I also have something unfortunate to inform you of. Yesterday, an attempt to escape was made by an individual which ended in an unfortunate event where drastic measures had to be taken to ensure everyone's safety. That person is no longer an inhabitant of the settlement, and will be replaced shortly. Let me tell you right away, there is no way to escape. I'm not telling you this to instill fear in you. It really is just that simple. It's physically impossible to escape. The mumbling of the crowd stops for a brief moment in order to take in this new piece of information. Moving on. I hope those of you who had intentions to try such foolish things can instead manage to settle down properly after today and start your new life in peace. Also, do stay out of the forest. You have been given a good chance at starting over here, and I truly hope you'll find it in yourselves to appreciate that fact. With that being said, find your building's designated caretaker behind me, and let's get started with today's activities. Dismissed. An escapee, huh? Interesting. They could have told us nothing and we would have known nothing. I wonder if it's an attempt at instilling fear after all. Regardless, or if something actually happened or not, the point got across. No escaping. As the masses start to move, I make my way through the crowd and find where I'm supposed to be with relative ease. Around me are now the only people of the living in the same complex as me, 23 men, 24 women. At the very front of the line, a kind-looking woman modestly waves for us to follow her. We make it back to her building. I suppose she's going to show us how the essentials work around here. As we approach our building, she stops and turns around toward us to say a few words. Hi everyone, I'm Emma. It's nice to meet you all, and I hope I'll get to know every one of you eventually. I'm the dorm mother of sorts of your building. The Hegel building. Hegel? That's unexpected. I'm reminded of the picture of an old man in a sociology book we were once handed in school, and my father pointing at the title. Dialectical thinking. Seek answers to questions as long as there are questions to be posed. My father would help me study these subjects, and his words rang out in my head just now as I heard the name Hegel. Today, I'll show you the ropes around here. First off, you'll now all be divided into groups which you'll work together in for the foreseeable future. These groups consist of 4 people each, 2 boys and 2 girls, and you'll do everyday chores and other day-to-day tasks together. In this settlement, we are basically self-sustaining. That means that we could get by without external help should a crisis hit us. She chuckles a bit before continuing. This doesn't mean we don't have meat or, chocolate, so you need not worry. Those type of things are delivered bi-weekly, but you won't be involved in that process. They're my favorite those days because they mean I get to eat chocolate. She smiles adorably, much like a child, and blushes a bit as she looks down towards the ground. I wonder if she just regretted those words? Despite her childlike manner, she seems to be a fair bit older than most of us. Some say it's difficult to judge another person's age, but in all my life, I can't say I've ever had that problem. I'd estimate she's in her late 20s, so she's not older by a wide margin, but older nonetheless. Her traditionalist clothes and hairstyle give off a vibe of a librarian. It wouldn't be right to not make a mental note of her fair appearance, so that's exactly what I do. Seeing as she's technically part of the staff here, I guess that makes her off limits for anyone here, regardless of how someone may feel about her. Wouldn't that be incredibly lonely, though? Unless she's already married to someone else on the staff, that is. If she ever were to fall in love, she'd never be able to act on that feeling. That's the worst curse I can imagine. I find my thoughts wandering off, and I force myself to return to reality. Okay, so these buildings technically consist of 5 floors. The ground floor is the shared floor where all cooking, laundry, and socializing, among other things, will be confined to. My room's also down here if you ever need me. With that being said, I've got a list here with your designated groups. I'll now proceed to call out your names, and I'd like you to raise your hand as you hear your name, so your fellow group members can find you with ease. I'll also mention which room you'll gather in for now. Once I finish grouping you, I'll visit the groups one at a time in each of your designated meeting places. I'll answer any and all questions you have then. As you're waiting for me, why don't you get to know each other in the meantime? She smiles, looks down at the list in her hand, and starts listing a large amount of names. A couple of minutes pass and I hear my name. And Quentin, you'll be gathering in the social room in the very back. I raise my hand and look around for the rest of my group. As I'm looking around, I notice a pair of eyes staring at me intently. I do a double take. My eyes meet hers, and as they do, her inquisitive gaze turns into a startled one. She looks away instantly. Behind her, a guy waves at me. Seeing as he's undoubtedly the other guy in my group, I start walking toward him. The panic in her eyes is vivid as she thinks I'm coming over to her. With a couple of steps, I'm right in front of her, and she looks like she's desperately trying to make herself smaller, or perhaps even disappear. I keep walking, though, and that's when she mumbles something. Quentin? I faintly make out this one utterance. I react to having my name called out, but now's not the time nor place for chit-chat. So, I'm going to chime in real quick here. I'm assuming the reason why there's two boys and 2 girls is, so say this is a room. The group is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to be paired up with the girl that we were talking to the previous night and probably the girl and guy below us. Assuming we're on like the 3rd floor or whatever. I briefly give her a glance that says I heard her, but now's not a good time, and step through the masses in front of the guy that's still waving at me. Hey there, Quentin, right? Yeah, that's right. He presents his hand before me and I shake it firmly. Ben. Nice to meet you, Ben. Likewise. It's so noisy here. Surprisingly so. I see at least one of the others over there, so let's grab them and head in, shall we? Let's. And contrary to the lively outside just now, and certainly in comparison to our individual rooms, this room's actually cozier than you'd expect, despite the very bare-bones design. I suppose it was designed that way. It's a room meant for socializing, after all. The nuisance of the crowds outside in contrast to this absolute silence leads me to believe the room's been properly soundproofed, which certainly isn't a bad idea, seeing as it appears to be designed to hold a decent amount of people. As I look back at what's supposed to be my group, I realize someone's missing. I suppose they'll get here eventually. Emma did tell us where to meet up after all, and it's not exactly hard to find your way here, seeing as we're on the same floor as the entrance. With the present 2 members of my incomplete group behind me, I sit down at a table and signal for the 2 of them to be seated in front of me. I was going to have their mini girl sit beside me, but she's still a no-show. This place will do. Comfortable, yet not too comfortable as opposed to the sofas, something which makes this the ideal place for talking. If the sofas were suggested, I would have declined. Eye contact is something you lose out due to how far apart they are. It is said 55% of communication depends directly on body language, 38% on the tone of voice used, and only the remaining 7% is said to depend on your actual choice of words. Whether or not that's entirely true, I certainly value these aspects of communication highly. In most of our old lives, they weren't given the respect they deserve. I'm thinking that now is a good time to revive these old habits of ours. Communication without ever seeing the person at the opposite end was often seen as smart communication. I always felt like we were missing out, though. Seems we're one short. The two figures in front of me nod and look around for a bit. I think I'll go get a drink first, then. The energetic girl walks off, accompanied by a huge smile. We've sat down for like 10 seconds and she already needs a drink. He seems to be pondering about something. So, you think you'll be able to settle down here? There's reluctance in his voice. Settle down. I don't know yet. It's the only reply I could come up with because I really don't know. It's barely been a day after all. I think this is just fine for me. Ben says these words as he looks down at the table. His face reflects sorrow, yet I see a sliver of hope, a sliver of relief at the same time. I suppose some people have an easier time adapting than others. For some, this is a huge chance to start over. But for me, I'm torn in all honesty. My family never truly adapted to many of our modern society's aspects, one of which was its common means of communication. It's not to say that we weren't unaffected by the circumstances of our society, we most definitely were, but at the very least, instead of resorting to phones and the like, we stayed true to more roundabout, natural ways of communicating. I suppose it was largely due to my father's profession and passion for the science behind the subject. A psychologist relying on extensions of communication surely wouldn't reflect well on his business of credibility. On some level, though, that means the human realizes that to truly see another person, proper communication is crucial. Yet in each of their everyday lives, they couldn't care less about it, as if it was nothing resembling importance. Negligence and denial, and they were confused as to why they were getting sick. I chuckled a bit under my breath, yet decided to defer my misanthropic tendencies for the time being. Without wanting to get into detail as to why Ben felt this way for now, I decided to change the topic. What do you think our group will be responsible for handling this week? I'm not sure I can tell if our tasks will pertain to this room somehow, or if we're only meeting here for now. Who knows? Surely it'll be cooking or cleaning, though. I suppose so. We barely get started in discussing this as I see a familiar face peeking from an alternative entrance to the room. Seeing who it is, how shocking that she used an unorthodox way of making an appearance. I suppose my initial impression of her wasn't far off. Her eyes are blue, cold, and beautiful. She appears to have assessed the room and us and arrived at the conclusion that she's in the right place. Ben doesn't appear to have taken notice of her presence just yet, which isn't that strange, since she undoubtedly pulled the exact same thing on me earlier today. The girl whose name I don't know seems to have a knack for stealth. She sits down without a noise on the chair, whose seat is probably still warm from the other girl. Ben visibly receives a small shock as he realizes someone's beside him, someone that wasn't there a second ago. I involuntarily smirk a bit. Ben looks at her and unequivocally tries to come up with something to say, but he appears to be at a loss. You shouldn't be sneaking up on people like that. I purposely make this remark in a matter-of-fact kind of way. Her posture is refined and elegant, and she's glaring at me with those icy eyes of hers. And why is that? Okay, this is really loud. I guess it's uncomfortable. I see. That didn't help. What? Damn. What do you think? Should I not sneak up on people? She directs her fierce gaze to Ben, who's confused by the odd question, but still manages to reply decently regardless. Maybe not, no. I didn't see you coming. I see. She looks back at me and gives me that stare she gave me earlier today, the one that makes you feel like human trash. I break eye contact and shrug. She's a special one, huh? first one to open his mouth after that. I'm Ben. Nice to meet you. He presents his hand to her. This will be interesting. First, she looks at his careful smile, then down upon his hand. After a moment of pondering, she grabs it firmly and gives it a fair shake. Lorelei. That's surprising. I suppose she at least has some manners. I would have expected some kind of holier-than-thou attitude on her part, but I suppose those people mainly exist in fiction. Her expression is still relatively cold, but if I were to guess, that's just part of her personality. Lorelei, huh? She turns to me and extends her hand. Quentin. She gives me a surprisingly thorough handshake, too. The kind you'd expect from that one largely built uncle you see once a year, not some slender girl you just met. She gives me a small nod as well. I suppose repeating her name once again would be superfluous, and I agree. It might have just been my imagination, but I feel like I briefly saw a small smirk just now. Guess it's rather funny we ended up in the same group after the debacle this morning. She's currently in position of power between the two of us. I could possibly get reprimanded for my endeavors, and I'm willing to bet that she's well aware of that. That's not to mention a nasty reputation for sneaking on other people's floors, one of the girls' floors at that. I still have no clue whether or not that was really her floor. I was too taken aback by her fierce offense to even question her myself. That's what irks me the most right now. In the end, I doubt it's a big deal at all, though. Even if she tells on me, I just don't like the fact that she's got something over my head, whereas I have nothing over hers. I take a seat back in my head, take a step back, and realize that the girl is making me subconsciously assume a defensive position. I have a feeling she's the type of person you wouldn't want as your enemy. We end up experiencing a few seconds of silence before the girl from before shows up once again with a drink in her hand. Oh hey, you found your way here! The girl directs those gleeful words towards Lorelei. She sits down beside me without mentioning the fact that Lorelei more or less snatched her seat. That's a noble ability on its own, I'd say. Not that it really matters anyway, but Lorelei doesn't strike me as the kind of person that'd do the same for her. Or for anyone else, really. They exchange greetings, and in the process I learn the other girl's name, Charlotte. She's currently struggling with a cap on her bottled water, and we're all watching her idly since it's the only thing really going on around us. For some reason, it appears it's sealed far too tight for her to get open. She lets out an exasperated noise, exhales, and angrily places the bottle on the table in front of her before looking up at us. Before us even sat there for a second without anyone having time to utter a single comment on the matter, Lorelei speaks up. May I? Without waiting for a reply, she quickly grabs the bottle and cracks it open in one smooth motion. The water's carbonation makes the bottle's contents rapidly rise out of the bottle with a sharp fizz, and to Lorelai's surprise, all over both her and Charlotte. 7 out of 10. Bonus points for the flawless execution, but a substantial deduction for the lack of foresight. If you hadn't been so fast, I would have told you I accidentally dropped it on my way over here. As I realized it was sealed quite tightly, I remembered just that. I was going to let it rest for a bit for its contents to settle down. Charlotte says these words with a dumbfounded look on her face. Oh. Ben's the first one to let out a hysterical series of chuckles. I can feel the corner of my mouth twitching, and Lorelei's puzzled expression puts me over my limit. I let out a few suppressed laughs. Neither Lorelei or Charlotte are laughing. With timid expressions, they're in complete silence, simply looking at each other, and occasionally at Ben and me. I feel just a tad bit bad for laughing. They're kinda soaked, after all. Once I've gotten the worst of it out of my system, I try to restrain myself. Lorelei still looks much like a sad, wet kitten after getting soaked. Her big blue eyes are quite shiny. Definitely from getting water in them, though. There's a limit to what asinine things can make you cry. Making a rookie mistake such as carelessly opening an aggravated carbonated drink is way past that limit. Now that I think someone like Lorelei would ever cry over such a trivial matter. Today's media would surely lead one to believe the female gender is more susceptible to random outbursts over petty happenings, though. Or rather, on the contrary, the stigma of men showing emotion is almost palpable. Gender equality is said to be taken seriously by many, but the fact that an emotional man is unheard of and is an uncomfortable idea to many makes me question the masses' idea of equality. Making gender is an ongoing process in which everyone in society continuously contributes to the idea of associating certain characteristic traits with specific genders. So from a societal standpoint, when something as natural as men crying is on unequal terms with women crying, surely something is structurally defective. I think I just got carried away. Charlotte snaps with her fingers in front of my eyes to distract me from my train of thought. Hello? Apparently me getting lost in thought is enough to warrant a bright smile from her. Lorelai's still acting surprisingly docile. I guess she's feeling a bit down after getting outsmarted by a bottle. Surely that's gotta take a toll on one's ego. And surely, the bigger the ego, the harder the fall. So, you're a bunch of weirdos, huh? Ben grins. I think we prefer the term rogues. We spend a fair bit of time talking about nothing and everything, mostly very mundane stuff, the kind that makes time pass. Lorelai rarely switches expressions. Charlotte acts as if she were in possession of Lorelai's expressions, and Ben is having too much fun over their shenanigans. Personally, I mostly observe and make the occasional remark. They seem nice, though. My first impression is that I don't think it's an impossibility that I'll call these people friends at some point. Emma enters the room. Whatever conversation was happening instantly ceases. She looks quite worn out, and it's only been roughly 40 minutes since she saw us off by the entrance. What's even more awkward is probably the second group. Some might get the feeling she'd rather head back to her room and relax. For that reason, I decide to make this easy for her. Instead of waiting for her to break the ice, I take the lead. Hey there, Emma, was it? Why don't you take a seat next to Lorelai and tell us what we'll be stuck doing this week? I'm Quentin. Lorelai looks startled for a second and gives me a look that tells me you shouldn't have done that. I decide to ignore her implications and focus my attention on Emma. Her eyebrows rise in surprise. Hey, yes, Emma. Thanks, Quentin. She sits down next to Lorelai as I proposed. It appears Ben has noticed Lorelai's uncomfortable and has given me a proud glance and nod. While still doing her hardest to look proper, Lorelai's eyes flicker a bit, clearly a bit unsure of how to act. I can't let this opportunity go to waste. Emma, I think Lorelai has a question for you. Lorelai's eyes spring open and she gives me yet another death stare. Fabulous. She clears her throat and lets out a clear string of words that I had not anticipated. Quentin wanted me to ask you if you're married. Charlotte giggles menacingly. Well, fine. I decide to gracefully accept defeat this once. She's joking. Anyway, what's on the agenda for today? Oh. Emma nervously looks around for a while, but continues on. Not much, in all honesty. Today was mostly for you to get introduced to your groups and the facilities. I see. How do you guys feel? No one gives her a clear answer, but we don't seem to be in a terrible shape, at least. Except for Emma, maybe. What about you? How do you feel? I have no idea who she was in her old life, but surely dealing with large groups of people can't possibly have been a part of her life. A toll has clearly been taken on her. Oh, I'm okay. A little overwhelmed is all. She smiles briefly and continues. Also, you guys are in charge of keeping this room nice and tidy throughout the week. After that, you'll swap assignments with another group. Ah. That's a rather lax task, I think. It's perfect, though. Gives me time to properly explore the place during the week instead of being stuck with something restrictive like cooking or laundry. Emma briefly runs us through the cleaning process and we follow her around the rather large room. Once our explanation has run its course, we nod to convey our understanding. She smiles and leaves us be. She heads off somewhere in the building, presumably to her room. Seems we were the last group to receive introductions. Ben and Charlotte have gone back to the table we were just at and have gotten into a heated conversation about whether you should wipe the windows clockwise or counterclockwise. They seem to be getting along nicely. Their chatter is friendly and jesting. They seem to be enjoying what they're doing. Lorelai is standing a bit to the side of me, observing them just as I am. I look over at her. She clicks her tongue, presumably in response to their silly antics, and looks away. I decided to take this opportunity to ask her about this morning. What were you doing on a floor that wasn't yours this morning? I take a gamble and assume it wasn't really hers. Same as you. Success! Did you find anything of interest? No. I was on my way further up the stairs, but you interrupted me and made me call it off for the time being. You're really infuriating, do you know that? I decided to straight up ignore her remark. The 5th floor. Or whatever's up there. I think back on Daniel's words the other day. There are 12 complexes here. Each complex consists of 4 floors. Floors 1 and 3 of each building are designed for men, 2 and 4 are designed for women. Furthermore, each floor holds 12 individuals. That's a total of 48 individuals per complex and 576 individuals across all complexes. I make a mental note of Lorelai's room being on floor 2. But floor 5... it shouldn't even exist. No matter how boring the answer, I'm overcome with a sudden curiosity to find out what's up there. You want to go check it out? No, too many people in circulation. Besides, I have things to do. With those cryptic words, Lorelai gives me an inscrutable glance and walks off. Ben decided he would hang out with Charlotte for a bit, and because Lorelai is probably mad at me for my shenanigans and head off somewhere by herself, I'll just return to my room for a while. Today's obligatory activities are over after all. I can still feel the effects of exhaustion in my body. It's telling me it's not in optimal shape. Maybe some rest will help reserve its currently lacking state. Reverse, not reserve. My curiosity about the 5th floor will have to wait. I make my way up the stairs. On the very last step before the entrance to my floor, a girl sits. She's joined on a small pad in her grip. She looks up at me. The first thing that pops into my head after a moment's consideration is that I know those eyes. Now that I'm within an arm's reach to her, it's painfully obvious it's the girl from the bus, and the girl in the crowd from earlier today, and naturally the girl on the wall. Okay, so that shoots my theory in the foot. She carries a sorrowful expression and her dark eyes reflect pain. A quote comes to mind. The one describing the eyes is the windows to one's soul. I'm not one to easily believe such things, but in this moment I wonder if there's perhaps just a sliver of truth to that claim. Her eyes. They tell me she wants something from me. It makes me uneasy. It makes me wonder what it is she truly wants. A friend? A confidant? A partner? No, these eyes tell me she wants a savior. I feel anxiety engulfing me. I am in no position to be someone's savior. There's no way I am. Does she expect me to say something? Mesmerizing seconds pass in silence. Soothing noise from chatter originating from the bottom of the building murmurs between the walls of the staircase. To me, it's oddly comforting in contrast to the rest of the scene before me. To anyone looking in on this encounter from the outside, it would merely look like any other everyday interaction between two individuals. However, I can tell there's likely much more to it. The noise from the chatter smoothly fades out as I watch the subject of my attention hypnotically open her mouth, just enough with each breath she takes. Her eyes are intense and demanding. Even though not a word has been spoken, the pressure I experience from realizing her intent starts to choke me. I can't breathe properly. My chest is tightening. Am I crazy? Maybe. But there's something in her eyes that scares me. Yet, however you look at it, a single frail-looking girl is all that's in front of me. Quentin. If someone had told me you weren't real, I wouldn't have had reason to doubt them. She breaks eye contact after a long stare and looks down. I was on the brink of passing out from exhaustion, so I wasn't quite sure it wasn't all in my head. I was waiting for you. Quentin. With a convincing familiarity with which she just said all that, I could feel my legs freeze into place. I see. So that's how it is. I exhale. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not that person. I'm not sure what I said to make you say that. You didn't have to. At first she looks genuinely confused, then her facial expression turns dark. Okay. Was there something in particular that you wanted? She utters one delayed word. No. She returns to her drawing and I walk past her towards my room. I need to process what just happened. I walk through my door and head straight for my simple yet comfortable bed. I try to relax and take a few deep breaths. I wonder what I'm doing, acting distant to some girl I barely know. I'm not quite sure in all honesty. Occasionally, someone enters my life in the most unexpected way. I've learned unexpectedness is rarely a good thing for me. In my experience, it means impulsiveness, the opposite of my familiar pragmatism. Unrealistic expectations, a basis upon which no healthy relationship of any kind can stem from. Wariness. I'm scared. Interpersonal richness is derived from honest, aged bonds and experience. That's what I've always believed. It's true I don't know her intentions in full, but it's a fact that I've been conditioned by past events to always assume the worst. Always on the safe side. Planning. Control. I suppose I am on some level damaged. That got dark for a second. Did I overreact? Should I apologize to her? These questions arise in my head as I gently dab my fingers on my forehead. It's moist. I give it a sweeping wipe. A panic attack wouldn't be the right way to describe it, but it's the phrase that comes to mind. My head rests against my soft pillow. I realize that in my haste, I forgot I still had my shoes on. I kick them off and my feet rejoice. I let every muscle in my body rest. I shut my eyes. My thoughts become lighter. I have to say, I'm still astounded by the general silence of this place. No fan noise from my computer. No buzzing static from my family's TV in the adjacent room. No washing machine pumping water in and out. No refrigerator door opening for my sister wanting a snack. No neighbors mowing their lawns at odd times of the day. No cars constantly driving past on the street outside my window. I think that'll be the hardest thing to get used to. The silence. If you let it run rampant, eventually, surely, it'll swallow you whole. My breathing is loud and clear, though, and my heart is rhythmically thumping as well. I cling to these noises that confirm my existence. My mind drifts off. Where to? Someplace nice. Hopefully. Click. Could have sworn I felt something cool on my forehead just now, but it's no longer there. Did I imagine it? Or am I still asleep? From one place inside me to another, I'm told to wake up. I'm still lost in the depths of some other realm, but I'm slowly working my way up to the surface of this vast, endless space. Click. It's there. Right on my forehead. And this time it's lingering there. The contrast between its cool touch and the heat of my skin makes me realize now how I'm burning up. My eyes gradually open. It's all blurry. My eyes need time to adjust. Is that a hand? It's retracted from my forehead and the shadow of a figure hovering over me takes shape. Normally I'd realize the possible urgency of the situation fly out of bed, but I feel calm. Let me linger in this calmness for a little longer. I remember my mother checking in on me as I was sleeping when I was little. She mostly worked nights and would rarely get to put me to bed as a result. She'd instead come into my room after she finished her shift and make sure I was well. The rough texture of her well-worn jacket and the jingling noise it produced. Her soft, cold palm on my cheek and forehead. I remember it all so vividly. Strawberry. She always smelled like strawberries. The artificial kind, because she'd always carry a pack of strawberry cough drops. Legally, I'm a grown man no matter how you put it. But Mother, I miss you already. I'm overcome with sorrow. I feel a wetness on my cheek. Tears? So much for my stoic ego, hoping to solely have the silence get used to. I wake up. Hey, come with me. I found something. Calm words are spoken. They're pleasantly icy, much like her eyes and palm. Lorelei briefly wipes off her hand covered in my sweat on my bedsheet and urges for me to get up. Seems I forgot to lock the door. Chapter 3. All Kinds of Time.